And wow, the stars are like so pretty. Mars is super bright. Oh, it's starting to clear up. I can see the stars. But anyway, so she has an interesting question. Hello, YouTube. This is Kodandi. I had an interesting question come in from my Patreon supporter, who I very much adore. Her name is Hobbit. She is a lovely person. But she asked an interesting question about how has my daily life changed since being here. And it's, you know, while I'm still here, it's hard to say because, you know, life here is interesting. Life here at the Adinam, living with my guru, is interesting. And, interesting things happen. And, you know, just the lifestyle here is very different from the lifestyle that I live when I'm out back in California. And so I kind of have to think back to when I was last in California. What was it like? How was my daily life different? And I think the biggest change in daily life is, first of all, in the fact that my mental and physical health is a lot better, so I'm significantly more, like, functional. I have more capacity to do, like, anything. I'm not bogged down by chronic fatigue all the time. You know, I'm able to, like, do stuff. So that's a big change, of course. I don't have the same sort of, you know, chronic pain and fatigue and miscellaneous other issues. As much as I complain about my health is so improved by being here. But also the third eye awakening. Having the third eye awakening, having the third eye powers, being able to access the third eye powers. And the most significant ones that I think are most significant in my daily life is the increase in memory. The incredible increase in memory that, you know, back when I was back in California and I was walking dogs, you know, I'd have to remember all these lockbox codes to get in and out of people's houses to get the dogs. And, you know, it was all like I had it all available. I could look it up. I didn't need to remember it. But I found that my memory was increased to the point where I could recall the lockbox codes, so that I didn't have to look it up. Each time I went, you know, I go pick up the dog. When I go to take the dog back, I remember the lockbox code. I can quickly get in, put the dog back, and get out of there and go to the next dog. So having, like, that increased memory, and also, like, it's sort of a combination memory and remote viewing thing, I think, where, you know, if I'm trying to remember back, like, oh, did I lock the door? Using my third eye, I can, like, walk back in time and see, like, watch myself. Did I lock the door or not? I can go with my third eye and look. Is the door locked? Is the lock there? And so that is, like, tremendously useful to be able to do that, to have this increased memory, and to be able to really, like, go back and walk through your memories in that way, in such detail as, you know, where you can find out, did I lock the thing or not, is incredibly, incredibly useful. Another thing is, like, telepathy and animal communication. So, here, they have very strict rules. And, well, to begin with, I used to work with a group of people, and we just had this high level of, like, telepathy going on, where conversations were so brief, because it was like you would say 3 words, and we would all know what was going on. And it was just, like, tremendous. It was amazing. And I go back out to California and I have to deal with people that don't have telepathy and are like giving me these long descriptions, and I'm like, shut up already. I already know how this conversation is going to end. I know what you're going to say. Let's move on. Yeah, so there's, having this telepathy and having it like mutually, having telepathy and the other person doesn't, it just gets super annoying. But having it mutually is so useful. And so there's this restriction on contact between men and women here. And for a while, men and women have not been able to speak together. But there was a time where, for various reasons, there were like a couple of guys that I ended up having to like work with, have contact with. We were kind of working in the same area, and but we couldn't speak to each other. And so I would be doing something and one of the guys would need something, and in order to communicate between men and women, we'd have to go like find someone who could talk to them to whatever. So there was this one guy in particular that we ended up with this weird like telepathic thing where he would just come and like look at me and I would know exactly what he wanted, and I would hand him the exact thing that he wanted. Like he didn't even need to speak. He just had to like stand there, and I'm like, oh, he's come, he needs to pick up this thing, and I would just hand him the thing that he wanted because I just knew. Like I just knew. We just had this weird connection, and I was reminded of that because I ran into him again, and we still can't speak to each other, but we happen to be in an adjacent space, and it happened again where he needed something, and I just knew, and yeah. So that is something that is very, very useful to have with the people that you work with. I'm gonna go sit by the Welcome Center. I think there's some good lighting there. So yeah, animal communication as well. This is something that I feel I'm really good at, and it's not something that a lot of other people here have been really working with, I don't think. It was something that was mentioned, but I don't think anyone ever really did any work specifically with developing it. But because back in California I have a dog business, and I spend a lot of time in nature, and I like being able to communicate with animals. I had this thing going, I don't know, that if you scroll back to my videos, I talk about animal communication and the third eye a little bit more. In particular, these ravens that I had been tracking, that, one year they had a nest in the parking lot behind where I lived, and after that, I followed them around. I, was tracking them. They had a nest further up in the hills the year after, and that would have been last year, and I haven't been back there yet this year, so I don't know what they're doing now, but, I was able to track them and also follow some of the other, like, the babies that they had. And so I had all these really interesting experiences with these ravens, but also with dogs, because, like, I'm walking dogs, and being able to have, like, animal communication with the third eye with dogs when you have a dog business is very useful. Wow, we have some cow friends. Speaking of animal communication, it's dark and they're black cows. I don't know if you can see them, but these are the rogue cows. These are the rebellious cows that won't stay in the Goshala. Oh, is cow getting up? Cow's making some noises at me. I don't think cow's happy. But that's fine. Cow is going to have to be comfortable with me sitting here because I want to sit here. Being able to download information. So this project that I've been working on today is embroidery. And, previously, as part of the sewing project, they're like, oh, can you embroider these things on the things that you're sewing? And I'm like, sure, why not? Of course I can do that. And, like, I haven't done embroidery since I was like 12, And I never even did a lot of embroidery. I did like cross stitch, which is kind of similar, but you're using, with cross stitch, you have this like gridded fabric that you're stitching on. And embroidery is a little more free form. Sometimes it'll be printed and you just kind of follow the lines, but I was doing a very free form embroidery. But anyway, I'm like, oh shit, I gotta like learn embroidery really, really super fast. And I used my third eye, and I was just like, okay, let's do this embroidery. Just being able to download information on how to do this, how to do embroidery, and it just worked. I mean, I watched like a couple of YouTube videos and just downloaded it, and I'm really shocked at how lovely my stitching is. Like today, like the embroidery work I was doing today, I'm like, I've even surprised myself by how lovely and beautiful it is, and I'm super impressed with myself being able to do this embroidery, because I'm not, like, I don't know, they asked if I could do it, and I just said yes, and I went to my third eye, and I'm like, okay, how do I do embroidery? And there have been other times when I've had some issue where I went to my third eye, and I'm like, okay, what's the solution to this problem? How do I fix this issue? And just downloading that information from the cosmos with my third eye, it's useful. It's really, really super useful to be able to do this, just to have access to all of this information. Oh my god, the cows are so cute. They're adorable. You're looking at me though. I use healing. I can use healing. And I get a lot of people that message me asking for healing. Yeah, and kind of like also being able to read situations better, because, I mean, I have pretty good instincts about what's going on with situations, just because of, like, you know, like spending so much time on the streets of West Oakland. I've got to like figure out people and things and what's going on, and is this a dangerous situation really, really quickly. And with the third eye, I can just kind of quickly do a third eye, like not even a full scan, just like a third eye blip, just to download like what is really going on here. And, you know, especially when I'm interacting with people online, because I don't always know their intentions, and there are a lot of people with not so good intentions, especially because of, you know, I am a devotee of my guru, and I am, you know, a resident here in his adinam, that a lot of people have really not so good intentions towards me, simply because of that. And so I really just have to use my third eye to get a scan of, you know, is this person asking questions because they're genuinely interested, or is this person asking questions because they're trying to get information and, you know, trap me in some, you know, something. And so I do a quick scan, and there have been, you know, it's been useful. I'll say that. I feel very good about my ability to do this scan, that type of scanning, to find out what's really going on and what are people's real intentions. So for a while I was sleeping a lot. And it was just like a mental health thing. Like, I was just processing, and I just needed to sleep a lot in order to process. And I decided I wanted to come out of it, and so I decided I was not going to sleep a lot. And so I sort of set this sort of internal alarm clock using my third eye, that I was going to wake up at this specific time, I was only going to sleep this much, and so on, and do all this other stuff. And it absolutely worked. Absolutely worked. The day after, I did not do that, and I ended up like sleeping for 1,000 hours. But using the third eye to have more control over your body and your body functions is so useful. Like I've also been able to use the third eye. Like if I have to go to the bathroom and for whatever reason I can't just get up and go right away, I can use the third eye to like make it possible to wait longer, to make it possible to that I don't have to go to the bathroom anymore. Using a third eye scan, being able to regulate my sleep, being able to go without food. I mean, I've been able to go without food, go without water, go without sleep, and it's, I think, very much because of the third eye, and being able to have that sort of control and connection over my body and my body functions, that I can go without food and water and sleep for surprising amounts of time. And I was telling this to someone who was staying in the Adinam about, I went for this many days without food and I only had this much water for this many days and all this stuff. And she's like, you have to be really strong to go for 3 days without food. And I'm like, I mean, I just don't. It just happens, it just happens, right? I mean, having that sort of control over my body now, it's the norm, and it makes things easier. It's very useful. It's very, very useful. But I think really the most important thing is that I have reached a point in healing that I didn't know was even possible, and I have the capacity to do so much more with my life, and just to live so much more. Get in touch if you have questions, comments. Please send them in. Connect with me on social media. I am here for you. Click subscribe. If you want notifications, click that little bell button by the subscribe button, and you will get notifications when I upload new videos and when I go live, which I'm not doing tonight. But, okay. Nityanandam.